Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, kids, children, babies. Welcome back to our 4:30 slot with the Ginetta X Project CARS eSports final. This time round for the Xbox One. Once again, we have 15 drivers. Well, actually, unfortunately, we only have 14 as one of them wasn't able to make it into the lobby. And unfortunately, we've been forced to start without him. But yeah, we've got 14 drivers in this final. If you're here for the PS4 final earlier, you understand the format. But for those of you who weren't here, basically what we're doing is a 10-minute qualifying, and then we'll have a 15-minute race, then followed by another 10-minute qualifying and a 15-lap race, not 15 minutes. It's 15 laps. But yes, it's 15 drivers, or 14 for this first race, battling out for a prize of £1,500, and also all drivers who have entered into this competition from the very start. 3 of them will be in with a chance of winning one of the 3 GoPros that are on offer in a random prize draw. So we're currently in the 10-minute qualifying session at the moment. My name is Yorkie, and joining me once again is Joe Barron.
Hello, ready to repeat all the action again. Different group of guys this time, but again, some more familiar names in the list that we've got. So it should be, yeah, we think we know roughly what to expect with some of these guys, and then there are a few names that are less well known in there as well.
Yeah.
But we have the likes of, we've got some guys from the BAM eSports team, we've got some SDL guys. I think amongst the 2 of those teams, those guys will probably be the favourites. They're certainly the most experienced when it comes to Project CARS eSports. And then we've got some less well-known names in the world of competitive Project CARS action. We've got Joey Island, which is a name I've not come across too many times. We've got Ace Lucky, and then some guys who have popped up in Project CARS eSports before, but haven't quite been as successful as some of the big teams. Like Original R6 Kid has shown up in some of our other championships before, but not watched him race live before, so that's going to be interesting. But I think, yeah, certainly the favourites will be amongst the BAM drivers and the SDL drivers, so we're expecting a close battle between those guys. And just looking at qualifying times from our Snetterton qualifying round, which is how these guys got into here, it was actually BAM Hornet who was quickest, with SDL Empower was second. So it does look like it's going to be perhaps between the BAM and SDL guys, but we're looking forward to seeing a few surprises as well, I think.
Yeah, the field spread this time around is a little bit bigger than the PS4 finals, but this even still pretty damn close, with 7 tenths from the qualifying round between first position and 15th. So hopefully we'll see yet again another very close race. It's good to see a lot of you are back in the chat again. Welcome back to those joining us in the stream. Currently just watching TX3 Rune. He's currently holding 10th place at the moment, just coming into the hairpin here at Alton Park Island. Once again, we're going to be driving the Ginetta G55 GT3 car, as Ginetta have played an awfully big part in helping organise this and, well, host this final and tournament. And it's absolutely fantastic to have them on board. Obviously, great success in the real racing world, and they're hoping to branch out into the esports scene as well. And we're more than happy to welcome them along and help them on that journey. So, good little partnership that we've got going with Ginetta.
How are we doing so far? About halfway through qualifying. How are we doing on the times?
Yeah, let's just have a quick look. I did see a car going sideways there somewhere along the line. There it is, up ahead. But currently in pole position is SDL Empower with a 117.243. He's got a pretty clear track around, and it seems like he is on another lap at the moment. Hopefully he'll be aiming to improve that lap time that he currently has.
You want to just show the full leaderboard for a second there, Yorkie, so the guys can see where everybody's at roughly. Quite a bit more field spread in terms of qualifying times at the moment compared to what we saw on PlayStation earlier, but we've still got over 4.5 minutes left, so that'll probably close up as we get closer to the end of the session. A lot of guys, like what you were saying on the PlayStation stream earlier, certainly a lot of guys just setting banker laps to start with and then pushing on further and further as we go deeper towards the end of the session.
Yeah, for sure. At the moment, we've got about 2.8 second field spread between first and second place. So
maybe just a few guys making mistakes there who might clean it up and get that lap in just in time at the end.
yeah, I did see a couple of people had a spin off in their first lap. So hopefully, CRT EB that we're currently watching at the moment, hopefully this lap time that he's doing is a 1:19.2, so he does improve and pops himself up into 12th place. That's just under 2 seconds from P1, so he's got a little bit more work to do to get himself up to the sharp end of the field. Just have a look through a couple of other names. SDL Alpine is currently coming into the hairpin there. Slight lock up on the front left. We've got another car sliding at a 45-degree angle there up ahead. There's TX3 Room once again in 10th place. Dubirsky in 9th. It's one of those who isn't in an eSports team.
Yeah, one of the less well-known names in this field for sure, but holding his own at the moment up in the top 10.
Yeah, he's just under 1.5 seconds off of P1. He had a pretty nice line through the penultimate corner, and once again through the final turn, very neat and tidy. Coming towards the line, see if he improves his lap time, which he does. He improves by 2 tenths and pops himself up into 8th place, so that's another 2 positions gained for him. Hopefully he can carry that momentum on to the next lap as well, improve a little bit further. Then we've got Bam, Anto. Obviously Bam, a pretty well known eSports team, along with SDL. Had a fierce competition between those two in the NCS and LCS series that we've been running in the previous months. So it's good to see that they're bringing their drivers once again to this tournament that we have. This time obviously more race-based than actual time trial. So be interesting to see how the guys handle themselves here.
It's, as we kind of said earlier in the day in the PlayStation stream, a lot of what we've seen of these guys has been success through hot lapping.
Yeah.
But I think what we're looking forward to seeing today is whether those guys can transfer the one lap banzai skill, whether they can hold their concentration and just cope with the pressure that's obviously very different to just lapping around on your own trying to go as fast as you can.
Yeah.
To cope with the traffic and defending and attacking and all the rest of the things that go on with proper head-to-head racing. It'll be interesting to see how the guys manage. But I've seen some of these guys race in person before. Again, we mentioned Paris Games Week last year in reference to the PlayStation stream this morning. Some of the SDL guys were there as well last year, and they didn't seem to be. They seemed like a very relaxed bunch of guys on the day.
Yeah.
So I thoroughly expect that they'll be near the sharp end, and again, I'm not expecting them to be feeling too nervous. They're used to this environment.
That's good. There's Bam Hornet, one of the ones who's Tokyo drifting his way around the circuit. Quite amusing to see, but he's up in 3rd position at the moment with a 1:17.656, so good lap by him so far. Then we've got Ace Lucky in 2nd, also one of the other lesser known guys, but certainly seems to be making his mark at the moment. He's 2 and a bit tenths off of pole position, as he's now just starting another flying lap coming into the final minute of this qualifying session. He won't have the time to finish this lap though, so it's more just probably a bit of a sighter lap for him and just making sure that he's building up that rhythm ready for the race. SDO Empire sat in the pits for now.
It's worth mentioning that if you do see some shenanigans in terms of drifting a little bit like that, there might be some lag involved in that. They may have got into a slide and then lagged a bit, which has made them look like they're Tokyo drifting their way around, but they aren't actually doing that. I think there was Anto did have a slightly weaker network connection than some of these other guys, so you might occasionally see him positioned slightly weirdly on the track, but it shouldn't be anything to worry about.
Yeah, actually looking through the field at the moment, quite a few guys are in the pits. Original R6 Kid is another
also
one of those.
Also having a bit of a
Tokyo drift moment.
lag thing happening there, yeah.
Yeah, we've got Alpine in 11th place, but we'll quickly bring up the leaderboard now. There are your results. So SDL Empower takes pole with a 1:17.2, and then we've got Ace Lucky, Bam Hornet, Burnout, Rossi, Pocus, Anto, Room, the Birdski, R6 Kid, Alpine, Drifter, EB, and it keeps popping up. And a couple of other drivers down at the bottom, which I unfortunately missed. And Proxy has managed to join the session as well, so he may actually make it onto the grid. We hope. We'll just pop into the spectator cam real quick and try and pick up one of the drivers, as there's a couple of people fairly slow start. A little bit of contact there between the drivers in the midfield, but the majority of people seem to, just as I was saying that, there's a little bit of contact between more drivers, a couple of people spinning off to the side. Let's see if we can pick those up at the back there. Who was it? Proxy was one, Original R6 Kid is another, and he hasn't managed to get away. In fact, he's retired back to the pits. Proxy has managed to rejoin on the track though in 14th place. Joey Island down in 13th, but we'll pop back up towards the sharper end of the field. There's another guy there, Unity Pocus. A couple of drivers actually off on the grass coming out the hairpin, whether that's more contact or whether that's them losing the rear of the car, trying to put the traction down, struggling there. And we've actually got a couple of drivers going side by side coming into the chicane here as well, and a couple of changes of position during the chicane. One of those going side by side was the Birdsky and Eby. They're both pretty close together, but it looks like the Birdsky has come out on top of that one, and Eby is down in 11th place and coming under a little bit of pressure from Joey Island behind him. Let's see if Joey Island can get a decent run coming out of this penultimate corner here down towards the final turn. Maybe a little bit of contact there between the two as Eby's going defensive. Joey Island being moved over to the side of the track, and he's actually been overtaken there by someone else who's gone up the inside. Joey Island though getting the decent switchback. There's a little bit more contact as this driver spinning off in the middle of the circuit. Joey Island didn't really have much options as to try and go around him, as he had Bam Hornet was on his outside and was the one who made the move down the inside. So drama in the first lap from basically the start, from lights out all the way to the end of the first lap. We'll move back up towards the sharp end of the field and see how things are up there. SDL Empower in second place with Ace Lucky just in front of him for the moment. So those two are swapped positions somewhere along the line and are relatively close together. You can see the drivers there in the field in the background. A little bit of a field spread at the moment, but it's not huge, and hopefully these two guys will start to run off into the, well, basically stay fairly close together and have a nice battle for the lead.
Yeah, we mentioned this morning when we had the PlayStation stream that a lot of these guys will know each other, but there are some names that we don't recognise, and I'm sure it's the same for some of the drivers. So what we will see is, particularly in this first race, we will see a little bit more contact than we might see at other times, just as the guys get used to how each other behave on the track and each other's driving style, because they aren't all, although some of them know each other, they aren't all familiar with everybody else on the grid. So there will be a bit of learning to happen there to some extent. We'll probably see similar to what we saw in the PlayStation stream, where in the first race there was a little bit more issues at the start, and then the second race was a much cleaner start, so we'll probably see the same here as well.
Yeah, that's hopefully what we will see. That's what I'd definitely like to see, as Empower is actually closing up onto the back of Ace Lucky, trying to use all of the track and a little bit more in a couple of places as well, dipping his wheels onto the grass, but he's closed up a couple of car lengths, and Ace Lucky's starting to come under a little bit of pressure now, as Empower looks like he had a slightly better run there through the first two corners of that chicane. Coming out of the exit, Ace Lucky's a little bit switch. Yeah. Oh, there's contact between the two, and they're both in the wall as well. That's going to be drastic for both of them. Ace Lucky resetting back to the track. He's down into 5th place. Empower's managed to carry on though. He came out slightly better than Ace Lucky did in that little tuffle there. But he's now got the Birdsky coming right up underneath his rear wing as well. Hopefully he's aiming to try and capitalise on the mistakes from the guys in front and see if he can slot himself up into that 6th place. But major drama there between those two drivers, as it was Ace Lucky who got caught out on the gasket coming out the exit of the chicane, lost the rear end of the car, and as Empower was sliding past, the two of them had it coming together and put them both off onto the wall. But even still, despite that, Empower was still holding on to 2nd place, and it was Rossi who was the big gain out of those, who was initially 3rd. Obviously managed to stay clear of it all and slot himself up into 1st.
Yeah, I think you have to say that's just an unfortunate circumstance. You could see that who was in the lead there? You can see that Ace had lost the rear of the car coming out of the chicane, and he kind of caught his slide, but an Empower had kind of come alongside already by the time he caught the slide, and it's just unfortunate coming together, which has seen Ace come off a little worse.
Yeah, very unfortunate. SDL Rossi using an awful lot of grasscrete coming out the exit of that chicane. Now coming into the pretty fast right-hander. It looks like Empower is
very quickly coming back up to his teammate.
He was a little bit fueled with, I guess, almost possibly frustration and more kind of focus and inspiration was to kind of push forward and see if he can regain.
If you look at
the lead.
The qualifying pace, Empower was on pole and Rossi was only fifth in qualifying. So I think you probably expect with the lobby settings and stuff that we have, with lack of tyre wear and some other things, you would expect Empower, if he's still got that pace, to come up to the back of his teammate, and that does seem to be what's happening.
Yeah, well, he's taken a whole second out of Rossi on the previous lap alone. So Empower's clearly got the pace at the moment, and we'll watch this as they'll obviously close up over the course of this lap quite drastically. And I wonder if actually SDL Rossi is... I thought initially he was going to pull over to the side of the road there to let Empower go. I'm not really too sure why people would really employ tactics, as it's not this isn't a team-based tournament. It's every man for himself. It's the prize only goes to that individual winner. So yeah, even though they're despite in the same team, it'll be interesting to see how hard these two actually race against each other once they actually come up alongside and get pretty close.
I expect they will race each other to an extent. But if it starts to get a little bit tasty, we might see one of them back off a little bit, just to look after the relationship between the team drivers and make sure. I mean, like you say, this is based on individuals, the prizes for individuals, but neither of these guys is going to have a shot at the prize if they take each other out, and it wouldn't be good for the team dynamic for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You can clearly see visually that Empower is closing up onto the back of Rossi. He's taken 4 attempts out of him on that previous lap. So Empower is certainly the faster of the two drivers at the moment coming into the hairpin. You can see he takes a little bit of a grass cutting line on the inside there, but does still keep 2 wheels on the circuit in the white lines. But he's using a lot of the grasscrete runoff areas as well in a number of places. So
how are we doing on overall leaderboard beyond these two guys at the moment?
So Pocus is in 3rd. TX3 Room is currently holding 4th with Anto in 5th. Alpine is in 6th with Hornet in 7th. EB is dropped down into 8th, and Ace Lucky is now actually dropped down into 9th place, so he's lost another couple of positions. So it looks like that Rossi's actually gone and lost the rear of the car slightly through that fast right-hander and has let Empower go. Don't know whether that was a team call, whether Rossi did actually lose the rear end of the car, whether he just backed out and decided to let Empower, the faster of the two drivers, slot ahead up into 1st place.
It might be sensible, I think, though, rather than risk an incident between teammates. I think it was looking like Empower did have better pace in qualifying and so far in the race. So I think it makes sense to give him that opportunity. Even if there aren't team points in this, I think that, the team still wants to win and they don't want to risk an incident.
Yeah, we just saw Bam Hornet there going very wide, coming out the exit of turn 1 onto the grass. And again, actually, he's actually got... No, this is Alpine. He's gone and lost the rear end of the car. He's reset to the track and has got underway. Going again. He's gone and lost a number of positions because of that. And that's actually a little bit of contact there between between the two drivers. He moved over to block the driver behind. He's actually gone and lost the rear end of the car in doing so as well. Reset to the track once again as there's a couple of other drivers behind who are going side by side. It's between Proxy and I believe Joey Island as well. They're actually going to catch Bam Hornet here as well. The 3 of them very close together. A little bit of contact there between Proxy and Joey Island coming into the chicane. But it looks like there's Proxy who's come out on top. And Bam Hornet's all over the place. And even again, more contact underneath the bridge there between the drivers as well. Fortunately, there's no damage on in this race. I think we could possibly see a few stewards' inquiries popping up after this race. There's been a number of contact incidents between a number of drivers. It's been relatively messy. And actually, Bam Hornet has gone and left the lobby session as well. So Proxy continues on in 12th place with Joey Island, having slotted himself up into 11th after the coming together between Hornet and Proxy. So it's been fairly messy here in these first 8 laps or
Yeah,
so.
I'm kind of surprised. I think we're seeing more driver error than we saw on PlayStation, which is one part of it. I think we're seeing people make mistakes and then kind of allowing people to get caught up in their incidents as they try and recover from mistakes. I think with 1 or 2 drivers here compared to PlayStation, there may also be a tiny bit more lag in this session than we had earlier in the day. But it definitely looks like we're seeing more driver errors, and it's just catching out some of the guys behind the people who are making the mistakes. They're arriving on the scene, and lots of blind corners at Alton Park, maybe not necessarily knowing what's over the crest in front of them and just getting caught out, really.
Yeah, it's quite a narrow track as well, so it is pretty difficult to find the space to move around a car that's spinning and dancing off into various different trajectories. So it's fairly tough in that sense, but Alpine is trying to make a little bit of a comeback here after his spin earlier on. Dropped down into 6th position. No, sorry, it was Hornet who had the spin earlier, wasn't it? Alpine carried on. But he's getting pretty close to the back of Unity Pocus. That we can see here coming down towards the hairpin. Just have a quick look at the lap times. And Unity Pocus on the previous lap didn't set a valid lap time, so you can't tell how much Alpine had gained on the previous lap, but it's interesting to note that CRT EB and SDL Alpine set completely identical lap times down to the thousandths of a second as well, so there's been no change in gap whatsoever between those two. It's quite amusing and remarkable to see, but Alpine at the moment is certainly looking to pressurise Unity Pocus up in front of him. Unity Pocus has got to try and hold his nerve here and see if he can break away a little bit from Alpine behind him. As Alpine takes to the grasscrete area on the exit of that final turn, that has actually gone and dropped back a couple of car lengths as well somewhere along the line. But Alpine certainly does seem to be stronger on the brakes out of the two and has been closing up in those areas. So we've only got 5 more laps to go as we're on lap 10 at the moment. You can see a couple of other cars up there in the distance as well.
It just goes to show, really, I think the race we've seen so far, if the guys who have had a tough race in race 1 can keep it clean in race 2, and other guys who make mistakes, there's still every opportunity that they could come back in there.
Yeah,
I think we're seeing, with kind of the messy period we've had in the first part of this race, I think if the guys react to that and just keep it clean in race 2, they could make up a lot of ground in the points quite just by staying on the road, basically.
yeah, definitely, because there's an accumulation of the 2 points from the points from the 2 races that basically counts in the final standings. And like we did with the PS4, we'll do a preliminary standings here at the end of the stream, and then the official results after any stewards' inquiries and penalties, if necessary, have been dished out to drivers. We'll put those official standings up on the projectcarsesports.com website in the early part of the week, either on the Monday or Tuesday. But yeah, just continuing to watch these 2 drivers at the moment. Alpine certainly looking to be a little bit tidier than Pocus ahead of him, although he's gone and lost the 10th. No, sorry, he's gained a 10th on the previous lap. Unity Pocus has lost the 10th and has lost a fair bit of time to Anto up ahead, but it almost looks visually that Anto has dropped back somewhere along the line on this lap, a little bit closer to Pocus. So Alpine gone and lost the rear end of the car there and has spun at a 180. He's reset back to the track now and is going to get himself underway, continuing on. But that's going to cost his chance of getting 5th place, as he's going to drop well back now because of that. Has kind of fallen into no man's land as the driver behind him, CRT EB, is probably roughly round about a second behind, and the lap times between the two on the previous lap, well, EB was about 8 tenths slower than Alpine was on the previous lap. So be interesting to see if EB with Alpine's gonna spun off again coming through the final turn. and has gone and gifted EB with 6th place. Alpine's dropped himself down into 7th with a second mistake on the same lap. Obviously, he needs to settle back down and get his mind focused back on the race. Obviously, with that grand prize of £1,500, I imagine there's quite a lot of pressure on these drivers' shoulders, and possibly that could be getting to them and breaking the driver's concentration a little bit.
But I think what we also have seen with some of the incidents we've seen in this race compared to the PlayStation races as well is there hasn't been as much of an opportunity for the drivers to get into a good rhythm with feeling around the lap, whereas especially for the guys in the midfield in this race who have been caught up in all the incidents, like the SDL guys up at the front are clearly running their own pace and getting on with the job, but when there's so much going on around you, it's so hard to concentrate just on your own race, your own pace, your own driving in general. So I think in the second race, if things calm down a little bit, you'll probably see these guys just become more consistent because there's less distractions out there on the road.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more room on Brands Hatch as well, so hopefully we will see some side-by-side action, but hopefully with a little bit less contact. It seems that the top end of the field, anyway, TX3 Room and also Bam Anto are the closest two drivers, as Room has a little bit of a moment there, look like coming through that long left-hander as Anto is closing up towards the back of him and has actually closed up dramatically and made contact. Room has just about managed to hold on and capture the slide though, and does hold on to third position for the moment, but that obviously would have shaken him up a little bit and put on the pressure after the little mistake that he does, and Anto's going to run deep once again and onto the brakes, trying to pick him up now. There he is. He's actually blocking. He's gone and lost the rear end of the car. I don't know whether there was contact there between him and also Unity Pocus, but it did come fairly close. I don't think there was contact between the two, but Anto running deep coming into that chicane and also into the hairpin as well, obviously trying to risk a little bit more, has made a couple of mistakes, and because of that is going to drop down into 5th position, losing out on 4th and also losing out on what could have potentially have been a 3rd position as well.
I think maybe one of the things we haven't talked about today, including in the other stream with this car, is you can be really aggressive with the tyres in this car, but there is a kind of fine point where they do tend to overheat a little bit more than some of the other GT3 cars if you're really pushing hard. Yeah. And I think given how close some of these guys have been running together and how quick we know these guys are, they must be running right in the limit of the kind of optimum window of these tyres from time to time. I think what we might be seeing is that once these guys get into a bit of a big slide and they make one mistake, they're then kind of wrestling with the tyres, trying to get them back in the right window for the next few corners, and that might be why we're seeing once somebody makes a mistake on a lap, occasionally they're making a second mistake later in the lap, and that might be part of the issue.
Yeah, definitely is. Like I say, once that tyre heat has built in, it's pretty difficult to get them to cool back down again. It's very easy to make that second mistake. Currently watching Duberdsky at the moment in 8th place, who's got Ace Lucky behind him, looking pretty threatening, wanting to try and take that 8th position as soon as possible. Obviously, Ace Lucky earlier on running at the front of the race with M-Power behind him before he had a slight moment coming out of that corner just there that they just exited out of and made contact with each other. Ace Lucky also making contact with the wall, which has dropped him down into this 9th place. But he's trying to work his way back up through the field and see if he can regain some positions. Looking to try and take 8th position at the moment, and has actually got very close. Maybe a little bit of contact there between the two drivers, bumping into the back of the Duberdsky in 8th, which pushed him a little bit deep. And once again, getting very, very close again in the braking zone. And Duberdsky actually taking a little bit of grasscrete on the exit there, and also the inside, but in doing so, has gone and lost some momentum. And Ace Lucky has popped himself up into 8th place. Is fully able to capitalise that in completely the right place at the right time, and has got himself up into 8th place. So he'll be obviously looking to try and push away and see if he can close up a little bit further to the guy in front. But this is the final lap of the race, and this is SDL Empower now coming into the final turn. Looks like he's slowing down actually and taking it fairly slow and steady, possibly a little photo finish here with his SDL teammate of
Schumacher
Rossi.
and Barrichello style.
Yeah, Empower does maintain the lead though. and SDL Rossi will come home in second place. TX3 Room will come home in third, with Unity Pocus in fourth. Bam Anto comes home in fifth. CRT EB will come up in sixth position, as long as he doesn't have any dramas as he comes across the line now. So he gets sixth, with Alpine in seventh. Ace Lucky is going to come ahead just of Dabrowski for eighth place. Dabrowski, sorry, getting ninth. And then UKZ Drifter is going to come up in 10th. I did see the car out wide there in the gravel. It was Proxy in 11th place, so I think he may have just made a mistake on that final corner and lost the position there. ONR Burnout coming home in 12th place, and then it's Joey Island in 13th. And it was actually Proxy who was one of the drivers who were saying wasn't able to make it into the qualifying session earlier on, but has obviously managed to make it into the race here. So here is your final score. Obviously Empower taking the win, and just looking down at the bottom there, Joey Island was in 13th, and we obviously had a couple of people leave the session after the contact earlier on in the race. But a pretty solid result for SDL, coming home in first and second, and then their third driver, SDL Alpine, was in seventh. So we're just quickly taking note of the results from that first race. We shall be back in just a couple of minutes. We'll quickly take a short comfort break. Feel free to go grab yourself a tea, coffee, another drink, or a little bit of food. We should be back in about 5 minutes with a new lobby set up and in time ready for the second race. So make sure to hang around. We'll only be a couple of minutes, guys. Thank you very much, and we shall see you soon. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome back to the second race of the the Ginetta X Project CARS eSports final for the Xbox One.
Get on brand, Yorkie.
We have just had race one with these Xbox One finals, and it was this man here, SDL Empower, who took home the win of that first round. And we're now just entering the 10-minute qualifying for this second race. So we have this qualifying session, and then following that we'll have another 15-lap race, this time round at Brands Hatch GP. Once again, we're racing these Ginetta G55 GT3 cars, and hopefully we shall see a little bit more of a cleaner race last time round. I think it was just, as we kind of discussed during the race, Joe, that was mostly a little bit of lag and people unfortunately getting caught up in other people's mistakes rather than actual proper malicious driving.
Yeah, I think nothing that we saw struck me as malicious. It just struck me as incredibly unfortunate. I think almost all the incidents we saw was someone getting out of shape under pressure and collecting someone else behind them, kind of spinning back onto the track or whatever. I don't even.
Yeah.
You can't.
There's actually even more contact there in qualifying. Not too sure who it was who went into the back of Owen Burnout, but he got punted off into the barrier on the exit of turn one.
Yeah, I think we just, as kind of happening while we're talking about it as well, like the guys just need to take a bit more care. I think there's a lot to gain after the stuff that was happening in the first race. There's a huge amount to be gained from just having a clean race this time around.
Yeah.
Just getting to you'll pick up places from the people who are still making errors, because some of the guys will, some people will make more mistakes, but you just got to keep your nose clean, I think, and there's big points to be gained compared to. There's opportunities still for people to make a comeback, basically. Maybe not like that.
That's it, definitely. I was seeing quite a few mistakes by a number of drivers here on the Xbox platform. Obviously, a grand prize of £1,500, there's an awful lot of pressure that comes with it, and obviously trying to manage that pressure and keep your head and your focus up without making too many mistakes. There's another driver there spinning off into the wall. That was the Birdski losing the car on the exit of the curb there and actually going back across the track. Fortunately, Ghosted cars are on and hasn't affected any other drivers. But a couple of people starting to lose the rear end in a couple of places. We see a couple of drivers there slowing down to give themselves the room that they need for their qualifying laps. So hopefully the guys can just settle themselves down a little bit, reel in the focus, and just keep the cars on the track and pointing in the right direction. But
how are we doing so far for lap times?
Yeah, let's take a look now and see where we are. As Bam Hornet is currently holding first place with a 1:23, and then just over a second is SDL Rossi. So the guys have been putting in their bank laps at the moment. Obviously, a few people having a number of mistakes and spins here and there. The lap times that you're seeing kind of in and around 9th, from probably about 5th position with Empower downwards, aren't really representative of their actual true pace at the moment. We'll expect to see that those 9-10 guys will go a little bit quicker. Unfortunately, it was R6 Kid won't be rejoining in this race. He disconnected from the first one due to having some lag issues, and he took the decision upon himself to basically leave the session in order to not affect any other drivers, and he was unfortunately unresponsive when we asked if he wanted to rejoin for the second race. But Bam Hornet has now been dropped down into second place. Is actually Ace Lucky, who I believe qualified in pole on the first race as well.
He was second in the first race.
He was second in the first race.
We had Empower on pole in race 1, followed by Ace and Bam Hornet.
I see.
So I would expect similar pace, I think, to what we saw before. I think during the race it looked like Empower clearly had the best car underneath him, or all the cars are the same settings actually, but you know what I mean. He was in kind of in the zone, so it'd be interesting to see if he can carry that on, or whether the change of circuit will disrupt his momentum. But I reckon we'll get similar results in qualifying based on what we've seen so far. And in fact, we are so far. We've got the same top 3 that we had before, but just in a different order.
Yeah, Ace Lucky obviously taking the pole with a 123.631. Bam Hornet only a hundredth of a second slower with a 23.644, and then just over a tenth from Ace Lucky is SDO Empower with a 23.738. So these lap times are starting to close up a little bit more. A couple of drivers is still yet to set a fast lap. Joey Island being one of them. His previous lap wasn't a valid lap, so he hasn't improved there. Bam Anto is another driver who will probably see set a pretty quick lap on this one. He certainly seems to be on point at the moment, just going through that previous corner, using the full width of the road, coming into here carrying some decent speed, hooking up the apex on the inside, not taking too much curb on the outside there, still very neat and tidy. Once again through the second of these three right-handers along this back section of the circuit out in the forest. It's been very good, very smooth so far by Bam Anto. So hopefully he'll be able to set a decent lap in and pop himself up near the front of the leaderboard, as he's just got this short straight and one final corner to go. Coming into that has been very neat and tidy by him so far, running a very, very good line, running the shorter line down the lower end of the slight banking here, and it's actually popped into second. Very good with 123.450 as well, so that's mixing things up a little bit. Bam Hornet has actually gone and taken pole. SDO Empower has also gone quicker than Ace Lucky as well. Ace Lucky's been dropped down into 4th position in these last few minutes. We're currently watching SDO Empower at the moment as he comes through the final turn. We'll see if he improves on this lap and whether he will remain in 3rd position or whether he will go higher. Crossing the line now, it doesn't look like he's improved. He hasn't. He was a number of seconds off on the previous lap, so that may have just been a cool down lap where he's just regaining his composure and stuff and now actually going for it. But he's looking a little bit scruffy. It was a little bit wide on the exit of turn 1. It was a car length or two, or car width shall I say, of the apex coming through the hairpin. A little bit better through turn 3 there. It's a fair bit tidier, but those first 2 turns would have cost him a couple of attempts. Again, just about managing to starting to bring it back towards the inside through the left-hander leading onto this back straight, but he didn't use the full width of the track, so I don't think that this lap is going to be quite as quick as his previous fastest that has him in 3rd position at the moment. We've got 1 minute and 45 seconds to go, so if he can be relatively quick through the remainder of this lap, he may have one last opportunity to try and set a fast lap time, but he's got just under 10 seconds now, and I don't think he's going to be able to make it. No. So at the moment, 3rd is the best that he is going to get, and he's recognised that and popped back into the pits as well, picking up Bam Anto again as he is coming down towards the second to last corner. The final corner is coming into that now. He's got another Ginetta just up ahead of him, but he's not going to be hindered by that as he comes across the line, and his previous lap was not a valid lap time, so he is not going to improve there. Ace Lucky, he's not going to improve either as he's jumped back to the pit, so 23.631, 4th position is where he is going to be. Picking up Unity Pocus, the 23.890 at the moment. He's currently holding 5th. He's actually jumped back to the pits as well. Burnout isn't going to be able to make it all the way around to the end of this lap, so for the moment he is holding 6th. Proxy is in the pits. The Bird Ski coming through turn 3 there, so he's done his final lap. Rossi's in the pits as well. TX3 Room, Drifter's in the pits. EB's in the pits. Joey Island isn't going to be able to make it towards the end of the lap either, so I don't think that anyone else is going to be on a lap time to improve. So pretty sure that this is going to be our final standings, with Bam Hornet taking pole position with 123.393, and then Anto will be taking second with Empower in 3rd, Ace Lucky in 4th, Pocus 5th, Burnout, Proxy, the Bird Ski, and then we've got Rossi and TX3 Room rounding out the top 10, with Drifter, EB, Joey Island, Alpine coming up with the rest of the grid to make the full 14 drivers. So here we go then with the second race. Empower will be looking to try and have a clean race in order to secure that £1,500. Here are the lights. There they go, green. Just quickly pop into the spectator camera. We'll try and pick up the drivers wherever we can and see where the battles are going on. There's a little bit of very close action between a number of drivers in the back end of the field. A tiny little bit of contact, but this time around the first corner seems to be a fair bit cleaner than it has done on the previous race. Hopefully this will continue. There's a little bit of contact there between a number of drivers that are running fairly deep, and there was some nose to tail banging between a number of cars. But it looks like if we jump up to the front of the field, that Empower's got himself up into second place, and Bam Hornet at the moment currently holding on to first. Anto has dropped down into third. Ace Lucky is in fourth, and there's a couple of drivers going side by side there. We may possibly see three wide as we come down towards the first of the three fast right-handers. There's a little bit of contact there between some drivers and pushing and shoving, both of them going off into the gravel and into the barrier as well. And Burnout was one of the drivers. The second was, who was it? I can't really pick it up who it was.
You may have
previously. It looks like he has, judging by that, as I no longer see him on the leaderboards, and we're now actually down a person as well. As Pocus goes and loses the rear end of the car, he's going to make contact with the wall. He's managed to reset himself back to the track though and got himself going. But yeah, a little bit of drama once again here on this first lap as we're picking up EB as he's trying to pick up the slipstream of Alpine in front of him. Is actually trying to make a little bit of a move coming down towards turn one. I think slightly better of it and slots in behind for the moment, breaking a little bit earlier. But Alpine has got to make contact with the back of Joey Island, as I think Joey Island is fairly slow through the first turn, possibly losing the rear end of the car. But yeah, that's going to cost Joey Island quite big there between a number of drivers. Yes, it's going to cost him quite big after that sliding and a contact between him and Alpine. But EB's now gone and slotted himself up into 9th place, as Alpine was diving to look down the inside there. So there's even more contact further up the field between Dubirsky and... I'm trying to pick up the drivers. It was Dubirsky and UK. It wasn't Drifter, it wasn't EB, it was Proxy. Those two drivers were off wide into the grass. So we're seeing some little bit of sticky cars going on as the drivers are getting fairly close, going side by side. I think the drivers just need to be a little bit more careful and give each other a little bit more room. And hopefully the guys can settle down into the race a little bit more as we're seeing more side by side action here. That was trying to pick up Alpine, trying to have go defensive to Dubirsky as Dubirsky was trying to recover after his earlier moment with Proxy. As Alpine's got to actually go and run off wide onto the gravel. He's able to get back onto the track though, but he's got Joey Island and also one other driver behind him. He's actually gone and retired back to the pits now as well. So Alpine has dropped out. TX3 room, yeah, I did think he's starting to have a little bit of a wiggle. He's gone and spun off and dropped down into 12th position there coming into the first turn. So he's gone and lost a position or two from that slight moment earlier on in the race. But up at the sharp end of the field, Bam Hornet is currently holding on to first position to Empower. Anto is coming under very heavy pressure from Ace Lucky, who's getting very, very squiggly there. Just about managing to hold on to the car as he took to the grass. Was able to keep it out of the walls, but because of that, he's gone and lost a fair bit of ground to Anto in front of him. And he's got a little bit of work now to try and catch back up to the back for that final podium position. So yeah, been a fairly dramatic start once again in this race. We're just coming to start the 4th lap now.
It kind of strange start to the race where everybody was really well behaved for the kind of first half of the first lap.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, maybe everybody started to get excited that they'd survived the first few corners and maybe put their foot into it a bit more. But again, like the famous phrase, you can't win the race at the first corner, but you can lose it, seems to apply to the Xbox racing today. Definitely,
as we're just seeing there, CRT EB losing out a number of positions, dropping down into 9th. There's a little bit more contact just up in front of him between Dabirsky and Proxy. The three drivers are very, very close. I saw in the background as we were watching the leaders coming into the first turn, and EB had a slight moment coming through that final corner and lost an awful lot of ground. He had another slight moment there coming through turn 3, has lost even more ground. Obviously, he lost 2 positions coming out the exit of the final turn, and he's gone and lost an awful lot of momentum and has dropped back a whole number of car lengths to Dabirsky and Proxy in front of him. Dabirsky currently in 8th, just behind Proxy in 7th place, and I'm sure Dabirsky will be fairly eager to see if he can try and work his way past some point fairly soon. I think there's a fairly reasonable gap. Yeah, there is, up to UKZ Drifter up in 6th place, who not too far up in front of him is SDL Rossi, who qualified quite far down the grid, I think, in the qualifying for this second race, but has managed to work himself up into 5th.
Yeah, he was 9th on the grid, I believe. So I think, as we were kind of alluding to during the first race, I think just keeping your nose clean with the mistakes that are being made and the kind of level of aggression we're seeing from 1 or 2 people. If you keep your nose clean and stay out of trouble, then you can make up so many places. And I think some of the guys further down, if they'd kind of adapted their strategy a little bit more, or their kind of mentality going into this race, we might have seen a little bit less of that and a few more people coming through the field. But these guys who've got the most experience, like the SDL guys, they know that if they stick to the track, if they another spin there as well,
I was
just keep it on the black bit and keep it away from the other cars to an extent, and you'll make up places. And some of these guys maybe need to adapt themselves to that a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I was, just saw in the background that Proxy was all alone after he had previously Dabirsky fairly close behind him. So I went back to see where those two were, and obviously we just saw that EB and Dabirsky were going side by side through turn 2, the hairpin on the top of the hill. And as they were coming down into turn 3, I think there may have been a tiny tap between the two drivers, but EB ended up losing the rear of the car and spun out, has dropped himself down into 11th position, obviously losing a whole bunch of positions through that. And it's Joey Island and also TX3 Room who have slotted themselves up into 9th and 10th position. And just picking it up, Unity Focus, the slotted himself ahead of EB, as I think EB had a slight moment coming through that second to last corner, which allowed Pocus to poke his way up into 11th position. And then Joey Island is chasing down TX3 Room in front of him. So he actually goes a little bit deep there in the braking zone for the hairpin, does manage to bring it back for a very late apex. Now coming into the third turn again, a little bit shy of the apex on the inside, but stays off the curb on the exit pretty crucially.
We're looking up at the front at the moment.
Yep, we're just working our way up to that now. UK Drifter there. It actually looks like there's been some swappings of positions as Ace Lucky's going and taken to the grass. It's got SDL Rossi in front of him. A little bit of squiggly action between these two. Ace Lucky looking to the inside of Rossi. Wasn't quite able to make the move stick there as Rossi held his ground and shut the door on him a little bit. Empower's down in second and Anto's up in first. So there's been a whole bunch of positions being swapped around here, as Anto was previously in third place. I believe there may have been a coming together between Empower and who could it have
I think
been?
Empower and Anto have actually been in those positions for a little while. I think when you flashed up the leaderboard earlier, I think they were where they are now.
Oh, okay.
So I think there hasn't been too much change there. I think it's the interesting thing is Empower, having dominated the first race, is now seeing Anto kind of pull away from him a little bit more. But at the same time, if Empire stays where he is, he's going to take home the prize. So I think he kind of knows that he doesn't have to risk quite so much as some of the other guys around him at the moment. Definitely.
Whereas SDL Rossi at the moment has managed to get himself up into third place after starting in 9th at the beginning of this race, and has Ace Lucky behind him, pressurising him quite hard. Obviously, Ace Lucky had initially a very good start to the first race before he made the mistake coming out of the chicane and made contact with Empower. But Ace Lucky currently in 4th place, obviously was following very, very closely to Rossi in front of him until about half a lap ago where they dropped back from each other slightly. I think Rossi had a slightly better run than Ace Lucky did coming out of one of the corners onto the back straight, and Ace Lucky having to possibly save the car from a slight slide and obviously lost the momentum because of that. But just we'll take a look at the previous lap times. Rossi with 25.4, Ace Lucky with 25.6. So it was Bam Hornet who was up in first place, if I remember correctly, a fair bit earlier on in the race, and he's dropped down into sixth place. So I was pretty sure that Anto was in third position earlier on, with Empower in second and Hornet in first. So there must have been some drama between those guys, because they've obviously all swapped positions, and Hornet has dropped down into sixth and lost out quite tremendously somewhere along the line, in and amongst some possible chaos that we hadn't seen and happened off screen. So yeah, Hornet catching Drifter up in front of him. We obviously want to try and regain fifth position. Actually took a huge amount of time out of Drifter on the previous lap, as you can see there, with Drifter doing a 27.3 and Hornet doing a 23.6. So vast difference, number of seconds between those two. So Hornet, obviously you would bet on to be the one to make the move past Drifter at some point in the next lap or two, but obviously catching someone is one thing, but passing someone is certainly another. So
it's interesting looking at the pace at the moment between the top two, because although he's running in second at the moment, Empire actually has the fastest lap of the race, but he isn't sort of operating at that pace at the moment, which he potentially could be as we get into a little bit of close driving here. But I think perhaps that's an indication that he is just driving slightly within himself at the moment, just to make sure he maintains his position and doesn't make a mistake.
Yep, Ace Lucky is very, very eager to try and get himself past SDL Rossi, who's defending very, very hard. Ace Lucky actually making the move, sticking to the first of the right-handers. Good move there by him, but it looks like SDL Rossi has had a pretty good exit coming out of that. However, he was on the outside for the second of those.
I think that's the kind of driver we want to see more of as well, though. Rossi swinging, coming, leaving the correct amount of space, fighting him hard, but not...
Oh no, Ace Lucky's gone and lost the rear end of the car through the third of those three right-handers, and that's going to cost him third place after making a pretty good move coming down the hill after the back straight. He's gone and lost out and dropped down into seventh position, dropping 4 places there. It's very, very unfortunate for him, but as we were saying earlier, I think it's fairly easy after a couple of slides to overheat the rear tyres of the car, and then obviously once your rear tyres have overheated, you get quite severe oversteer, and it can be quite tricky to hold on to. So
it's such a shame as well. That was a really good, fair move on Rossi. That Rossi actually, as I was saying, he really allowed the correct amount of space, and they were both driving really well. So that is a shame to see him back down there. But on the plus side, as neutral spectators, we get to watch him try and come back through the pack again.
Yep, his first car that he's got to try and get past is Proxy. Proxy starting. Where did Proxy start again? I think he had a half decent qualifying this time, starting up in the top 10.
Yeah, he was up in 7th in qualifying, so he's kind of stayed in his position through the race. I imagine he's had some ups and downs along the way, but he's racing now in the position he started in.
Yeah, Proxy's actually one position
Proxy,
ahead.
yeah.
He's currently in 6th place. We're currently watching Ace Lucky, who's in 7th place. So yeah, he is up one, but I think, like you said, he's been up and down the field a little bit by a position or two. And Drifter isn't actually too far up ahead. We can see him there in the background. So that means that Hornet has managed to get past him at some point. And Ace Lucky having another slide there through the final turn, but managing to hold on to that one. Hopefully you can keep that in mind coming into this first turn, and things will be relatively smooth and calm for him. Again, another slight slide there. You can see a little bit of smoke kicking out from the back of the Ginetta. Very hard on the brakes, running fairly deep, but as able to keep it between the white lines and on the black stuff. So that could potentially be a three-way fight that we're seeing starting to develop there between Drifter, Proxy, and Ace Lucky. We're just going to jump up to Ace Hornet as he's currently chasing down SDL Rossi for that final podium position of third place at the moment. Empower has actually been closing down onto Anto as well for the actual lead of the race. So we might stick with these two just for the moment to see if Empower is going to close up anymore, and if he is, whether he's going to see if he can try and slot himself up into the first place. Obviously, he's in a very good position for taking the overall win here in this Xbox final, but surely there must be a little bit of incentive to come away with the win for both races in this final, don't you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think if the opportunity presents itself, he's going to try to take it. But I also, if he's got his head switched on and he's done a bit of maths himself between race 1 and race 2, he'll know that he's okay at the moment. He'll know where Anto finished in race 1, and I think he'll be optimistic that he can get through, but also kind of cautious at the same time. I don't think he's going to risk too much. You definitely, if he has the opportunity to get alongside, he's going to try and take it into the braking zone for sure.
Yeah, definitely. He just needs to, obviously, if he is going to try and make a move, just be a little bit cautious and be very mindful of the driver in front. Because obviously, Anto's been running a pretty good race so far. He's managed to keep his nose clean, and obviously he's got himself up in first, but he's now actually starting to come under quite tremendous pressure from Empower behind, who is certainly looking quicker. If we actually take a look at the lap times of the previous lap, he was 0.2 of a second quicker. And like we were saying earlier, SDL Empower currently holding... Actually, no, he's not holding the fastest lap of the race.
No, not anymore. We've got
Hornet has got the 23.
Amount, but yeah.
Yeah, 0.05 of a second. So pretty close between those two. And Hornet is actually closing up onto the back of SDL Rossi as well. I imagine SDL Rossi, being a bit of a rear gunner for Empower, will want to try and hold Bam Hornet up for as long as possible to try and give enough breathing room for Empower that he needs to basically take the fight to for the overall win, as Hornet may have looked like he was starting to slide a little bit there coming through the exit of the first turn, but for the moment managing to hold on to the car, has managed to stay relatively close to SDL Rossi in front of him as Rossi actually runs the curb on the exit, which cost him a little bit of traction there. This is the key corner, and Hornet taking a look to the inside, but Rossi closing that door, and actually, no, Hornet's going to spun off onto the gravel on the outside, has reset himself to the track. He's got Drifter coming up behind him though fairly quickly. Drifter looks like he may have got past relatively smoothly, and so did Proxy as well actually, as they now come down the hill. But Proxy's got a slightly better momentum that he's managed to carry through that in avoiding Bam Hornet, who's going to drop down into 6th position, and Proxy's closed right up onto the back of Drifter. I think that's Ace Lucky that we saw in the background. No, it's the Birdski in the background in 7th place, who's fairly close. So Ace Lucky has dropped. He's left the session. He's no longer in the race anywhere. So we'll quickly pop up to Bam Hornet once again, who's all over the back of Proxy at the moment, wanting that 5th position, and see if he can work his way up higher. But he had the potential to get onto the podium, but another slight mistake from Hornet has gone and cost him that final podium position, and has obviously cost him a whole load of places as well. Let's quickly jump up to Empower, who is getting very close to the back of Anto now.
This is kind of what I was alluding to before. He'll be quite kind of happy to be tucked in underneath him at the moment.
Yep.
I think if the opportunity comes, he's going to go for it, but I don't think he's going to necessarily force the door open. He's more just kind of sitting behind and trying to unsettle the guy ahead.
Yeah, as you say that, he's peeking out up into the mirrors of Anto in front of him.
Just letting him know he's there.
Yeah, and Anto, for the moment, holding his nerve, holding his line, still keeping it fairly clean and steady. Looks like Empower's dropped back by a car length or so. Possibly a slight wiggle there from Anto in the final of those 3 right-handers. And Empower looks to be a little bit tidier and a little bit closer to the apex on the inside as well. But Anto is still holding on to that lead, has a car length or 2 between him and Empower. We'll take a look at the lap times as they come to start the final lap of the race. There's not much in it, only 700ths of a second between the two. So they now come up into the hairpin. Empower closing underneath the rear wing of Anto in the braking zone. That's just the Constantino effect as the gap does stretch back out a little bit when they accelerate out of the corner. And Empower will be possibly looking to try and get a decent exit coming out of this hairpin here. Let's see if he can get a run on Anto coming down the hill into the back section of the circuit. But for the moment, it looks like he's, like we've been saying, fairly calm, collected, and just staying behind Anto, as he knows that if he comes with second position in this race, he will come away with that grand prize of £1,500. So it's only just a few more corners to go, but Empower is still looking closer and tidier to the apexes of the corner and getting a pretty decent run at Anto in front of him. Very, very close between the two, almost making contact. Anto looking to go a little bit defensive coming into the final turn. Empower having a little bit of a look, but not really going for any stupid moves. And it's going to be Anto who's going to take the win of the second race, coming across the start-finish line. But Empower is going to come home with second and ultimately the win. Rossi is going to come up in third place as he goes and crosses the line with a little bit of a wiggle there. Drifter was going to come home in fourth until he made a mistake coming out of the final turn. Has lost two positions. Proxy and also Dubirsky capitalised on that, slotting themselves up into fourth and fifth. Drifter dropping down into sixth. Unity Pocus is going to come home in seventh place. TX3 Room is there in eighth as he makes the approach down to the final turn on his final lap, coming into that now. And he'll be accelerating out of that corner and then down over the grid boxes to the start-finish line to complete his race. Then Joey Island had retired to the pits along with Alpine, and then us there in 11th place. So we've had quite a few dropouts in this lobby, but there you can see the final standings with Anto taking first, Empire in second, Rossi third, Proxy fourth, Dubirsky in fifth, Drifter in sixth position, followed by Unity Pocus, TX3 Room, Joey Island, and then SDL Alpine coming up in 10th place. So Joe will do some very quick calculations, but from initial speculation, it'll be SDL Empower coming away with the overall win in this Xbox final. And we'll just look to see who will be in second and third place. And we'll give you those as a provisional final result, and then the final official results will be posted on Project CARS eSports.com, and
on probably Monday or Tuesday, I would guess.
Yeah, we're aiming for early in the week as possible. So keep an eye out for those. Hopefully the race tomorrow, we do have one more final, which is the PC finals, which will be broadcast at 1 PM UK time. Myself and Fizzy will be providing the coverage for that. Hopefully we'll just see some good action from those finals, but we do now have the preliminary drivers results. So SDL Empower will come home with the win from the two races in this Xbox final. Next up was BAM Anto, and SDL Rossi in third position. TX3 Room will take fourth, Unity Pocus in fifth, Dubirsky sixth, Proxy in seventh, UKZ Drifter in eighth position, CRT EB in ninth, SDL Alpine in 10th. Then we have Ace Lucky in 11th, with Joey Island in 12th, Bam Hornet, ONR Burnout, and then Original R6 Kid rounding out those final positions from this final. So, Joe, any final words from this Xbox final?
I think we saw a bit more drama than we were anticipating, but at the same time, was maybe a little bit of an expectation of that, because we had more of a few more sort of unknown names in this that we didn't know quite so much about compared to the PlayStation final. But I think you have to say the guys in the top three they were the top three guys over the two races. They did the best job over the two races. They had the cleanest races. They were the guys who were giving each other the room. They were the guys who were pushing when they needed to push. So I think it's a good result, and it's good to see that the guys at the front were the best guys on the day as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully you guys in the stream enjoyed those two races from this Xbox final for the Ginetta X Project CARS eSports Cup. And like I said, tomorrow at 1 p.m. UK time, we'll have the PC finals for that final £1,500. And then, of course, we do also have the random prize draw for any of the entrants who entered into this tournament from the very start, even before the final and the qualifying stages, doing the time trials. If you had signed up, you may be in with a chance of winning one of 3 GoPros. So we'll be announcing the winners from those as soon as we get that draw done as well. But thanks very much for tuning into this stream, guys. Very much enjoy having your company and reading the comments as we go through the races. But hopefully we shall see you again at 1 p.m. UK time tomorrow for the Ginetta X Esports PC finals. And yeah, thank you very much for tuning. Until next time, take care.